evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Devy Workshop. As you can see on the screen, if you're watching on YouTube, we've got joined by a special guest. He's Cory P from College to Campton, a fantastic place there. Definitely follow them on Twitter. He does a show up through, there's many shows through C2C College to Campton website and Twitter, and he co-hosts Back to Devy with his partner over there, another great podcast. So definitely drop Cory P a like on Twitter. I'll drop all the feeds there that you can follow C2C and Cory there. Definitely all of them worth a follow. Some great bunch of guys over there and give you some great content. So yeah, I'll introduce him. Cory P, thank you for joining us today. We're going to do a three-round Devy Mock Draft. Appreciate you jumping on.
No, thanks for having me, Jordan. I mean, we've been talking a little bit. You were talking about how you used to have a podcast back in the day. I couldn't catch that one, unfortunately, but it's nice to see you're still chugging along here. I know you lost your last co-host before, and it's nice to see that you're still trying to go. I love coming on these shows, man, and guys really trying to get started in the industry as well. You know, I'm not even like a seasoned vet in this industry as well either. You know, I still get the jitters every time I hop on a podcast. So it's nice to come and just talk with some like-minded people about football and college football in particular.
Yeah, exactly. That's why it's just an excuse to talk about the game that we love, and obviously the fantasy and obviously college football as well. It's just an excuse to jump on and talk stuff. You know, I enjoy that. So yeah, I appreciate you jumping on. Like I said, obviously this episode we're going to do a 3-round Devy mock draft, and we're gonna take it in turns. We're put it up on the screen here, and obviously I've taken the easy one, Cory. I've taken the 101 off you. You know. So, unless you think otherwise. So we'll jump straight into it. It's, like I said, I've got the 101. It's a 3-round Devy mock draft. We're classing it as a startup with Superflex and just the basic PPR and tight end premium, which most people play anyway. That's the most common league. And so we go through our picks. We'll go back and forth. We've thrown a few different ones in there that we might not normally pick in other ones, just to throw a few talking points in there. So first up, I think for me, obviously, it's unless you think otherwise, it's Caleb Williams at the 101. If we're going to start now, we know the ceiling that this guy's got. He's got another year left in college, which I'm pretty confident he'll go in the 2024 draft. Is there any other answer apart from Caleb Williams here, Cory?
No, I mean, I think this is definitely the one. I mean, there's a lot of good insulated value here too. I kind of think like whatever even happens this year, unless you know, unfortunately gets injured or something like that. Let's pray that doesn't happen. But he's going to be phenomenal in this offense. He's going to lock himself into like a top 10, maybe number 1 overall pick. Fantastic size, good mobility, good arm talent. Hooked up with the quarterback guru and Lincoln Riley, who has this track record of producing quarterbacks who get drafted into the NFL there. Set up with great weapons over there as well. So everything is looking lined up for him to have another monster season here. He's definitely the smash pick at 1.1.
Yeah, obviously he's lost John Anderson, but he's picked up a few guys, especially one guy over there. I don't think we've picked him, but I don't want to mention him just in case. Like I said, off air, my memory is pretty terrible, so I'm not going to say. But yeah, he's in a perfect position over there. And like I said, touch wood that there's no injuries, and he should be set up for a good season this year before he heads off into the NFL. So that leaves you, like I said, I took the 101, took the easy one. So that leaves you in the 102. Some people may say it's still an easy pick, Cory, but where did you go with the 102?
Yeah, I think this is, 1 and 2 are probably 2 easy picks here too. And I'm going with Marvin Harrison, wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver for Ohio State. Just feels like probably the safest prospect at wide receiver in a while. The NFL bloodlines from his pop. So, young age, he was teaching him route running and how to refine his game at that young age as well. I did think as well when I watched some of his freshman tape that he was one of the more refined wide receivers coming out when I was watching his high school tape, What I didn't expect probably was some of the explosiveness he brought with it. Like, I'm not sure if he fully had it in high school. Like, he did test like a 4.6 or something coming out as a prospect, but clearly it's something he's been working on. He's apparently been clocked like close to 23 miles per hour, a sub 4 second shuttle time, all at 6'4", 205 pounds. I mean, just elite traits. Probably the type of guy, again, like I said about Caleb Williams, I think he's like Jamar Chase. He could probably take this year off and he would probably still end up a top 10 pick in next year's draft. So just elite traits that you can bank on here at the 102.
Yeah, I think all the talk coming out there from the wide receiver coach is saying that he's the best one in the last 3 or 4 years out of these wide receivers. I put on tape myself and I see obviously a great wide receiver, but you might disagree with me here, but I still feel that I don't think he's separated himself from the other guys. Obviously, he's got another year in college. I'm not saying he's way below the other guys, but I still feel that, obviously, I know Jackson Smith-Njigba had the year last year where he was injured, but the year before, Jackson Smith-Njigba was unbelievable and stuff. Do you still think Marvin Harrison's ahead of these guys, or do you think it's quite similar with the guys that have come out, obviously Olave and Garrett Wilson as well?
Yeah, and I guess it's different size types as well, too, right? You're talking about a little bit of smaller, which the NFL's trending a little bit more towards, which is the smaller, shiftier separation artist types. But I do think Marvin Harrison brings some of that at his size. So when you're combining both those things now, like you've got the size and you've got that separation ability as well. I wouldn't say he's like super quick in small areas, but he's a very crafty route runner. He finds a way to gain separation through the craft, through the stem of his route, his footwork. So I honestly think the combinations of things, all things considered, puts him above the other guys for me. Even considering, JSN, I don't want to ding JSN's profile, but again, this was a guy who only played in the slot as well. We still don't really know what his test time would be. I know the pro day gave him a pretty nice number, but there's some rumors about if that was a real number or not. So I don't know. It would have been nice to see him with the official number as well. I think Marvin Harrison, probably is a better athlete and brings more size to the table. So he feels like the number one guy for me in this room. Would you think it differently?
I don't. I'm not saying he's. Maybe I'm biased. Like I mentioned off air, I'm a Seahawks. I've got a bit of bias on me with Jackson Smith-Njigba, but I just feel like this year, if Marvin Harrison has another top season, then yeah, he would be the number one guy. Obviously, there is a bit of differences with it, but obviously he's got things what the other guys haven't got. But the other guys haven't got what he's got. So I'm guessing if you put all that together, then maybe he is ahead. But I don't think he's as far in front of the other guys as people are making out at the moment. But whoever you've got, if you've got these guys on your NFL team already, or Marvin Harrison or Devy, you're going to be happy no matter what anyway, aren't you? So I suppose it's an argument for the sake of arguing, really.
Hey, exactly. We're splitting hairs here, just trying to help you decide between two top end guys. I mean, smash the draft button and enjoy the fruits of what you're going to get there.
Yeah, exactly. So back over to me with a 103. I'm going to go back to quarterback here. Drake May is the guy. Obviously, the two guys that cop Caleb Williams, Drake May. Some people are going Caleb Williams. I think there's more people in the Caleb Williams camp than there is Drake May. But Drake May had a solid first year last year. I can't fault what he did last year. I still want to see it quite a bit more. I think in the pocket he's quite good and stuff. But when he's had to move out of the pocket on the run, he can obviously be a bit off target with his throwing. His rushing was great last year, which was a big surprise. I didn't see that in his arsenal. I'm not obviously you would say you dive into the high school. That's something that's a bit difficult to do for me over in the UK. I try my best to try and get the highlights as much as I can, but I didn't see that from him. But I do like Drake May. I don't want to put him down or anything like that, but I still think there's quite a bit still to prove there for him to jump over Caleb Williams for me. Is there anything that you want to see from Drake May improve this year? Going into his second year as a starter.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think, of course, we've got to give him some leniency for being the first year as a starter. There's obviously going to be some bumps in the road, but I think he showed a lot of a potential, checks a lot of the boxes. You want to see size, mobility, rush for a ton of yards, ton of touchdowns this year, has the arm that can make every type of throw as well. My one point of contention looking into his profile a little bit over the offseason here, was some of the lack of production against some of the better defenses he played. And he really seemed to hit a wall down the stretch of his season. For instance, until the last 4 games of the season, averaged almost 350 passing yards, 3.5 touchdowns, only 0.3 interceptions, and a 70% completion percentage per game in those first 10 games. Then all of a sudden, the last 4 games dropped off, which was better defenses as well, playing, the bowl game, some of the better teams at the end of the season, dropped off to 227 yards per game, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. So 1-to-1 touchdown interception ratio in those games, and 56% completion percentage over those last 4 games of the season. So it's I don't know. I know Josh Downs was ailing as well. So some of the weapons were kind of in and out of the lineup. He lacked some chemistry with some of those guys. But we want to see from a top end quarterback, we want to see the ability to raise the people around you. Things like Tom Brady did with all the guys at New England, all those scraps at wide receiver. A guy like Aaron Rodgers who consistently raised guys there at Green Bay as well. We want to see that from our top guys. I don't know if I necessarily saw him elevate the team, besides maybe putting it on his shoulders and rushing a little bit more. But still, I just want to see maybe him do it in a different way. He goes through a little bit of a offensive coordinator change as well. There's going to be a lot of personnel change. Downs isn't there anymore. Their top receiver isn't there anymore from last year. So there's some avenues that worry me about the type of season that he could potentially get into here. Some of it feels a little bit trappy, but again, there's a lot here to like as well. I'm just trying to pick some holes in his game at least.
No, it's good. It's good points that he makes. Like my next question before we moved on, just a real quick one. Obviously, I'm not comparing Drake May with Sam Howell, but there's a lot of similarities to Sam Howell's last season before he went to NFL. You know, say look, he's losing a lot of his weapons. Drake May,
right?
Obviously, the scheme that North Carolina play. You know, we've seen him like having someone like Josh Downs for your first read and stuff makes it so much easier sometimes, you know, like to play football and throw. Obviously, the North Carolina system obviously looks at that, you know, where it's like first read most of the time. And when he comes off his first read, he has struggled there. Like, again, I'm not comparing Sam Howell. I think he's a better, Drake May is a better Sam Howell, but obviously he's going to have some of these problems going into this second year, similar to what Sam Howell did.
Yeah, no, I definitely think so as well. I think Howell as well, there was some kind of injury issue there that was kind of behind the scenes. I'm not exactly sure what it was, so I don't want to put any like rumors in people's mouths or anything like that. But there was some kind of medical issue that apparently popped up during the medicals at the combine, which may have led to some of the drop as well. I mean, we did see the I was about to say the Redskins, but the Commanders kind of go behind him a little bit this offseason as well. So maybe there was some talent there that we did like, but maybe he got dinged for the size a little bit too. Drake May brings a little bit more size to the table, maybe a little bit more translatable mobility. Like I kind of thought of Sam Howell as kind of like Baker Mayfield type mobility, whereas Drake May is maybe closer to like Josh Allen type mobility, where I can actually see it translating a little bit more to the next level. So I definitely think there's some things that I like better with Drake May going forward, at least for some of the traits that he has compared to Sam Howell.
Yeah, that's right. It's definitely going to be exciting to see what he brings next season. You know, obviously another one who's probably going to, with a good season, commit to the 2024 draft. So the 104, Cory, back to you.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with, well, I have three guys in my tier 1 for running backs. Okay, you could go out any three orders of here. I'd be happy with any three of them. I decided to go with our company's running back one in our Devy guide. That's Nicholas Singleton. Really, really impressed with the season that he gave us. Impressed me more given the high school offense he came from. It was this triple option offense where it was a lot of running outside the tackles, where he was kind of that flip option to the outside. So it was a lot of using his speed and power bouncing to the outside. And I will say that we did kind of see that a little bit in this year as well. He liked to get outside and then just kind of take it to the house there. We saw that raw power and speed shine through, though. This was a guy that was clocked. Our recruiting team over at Campus to Canton does mile per hour tracking for these guys. They've got him clocked at 22 miles per hour at that size as well. I mean, he was 6 foot, 215 pounds. So big play threat, really only scratching the surface, in my opinion, of what he can become as a running back. And I think you have to do a little bit of projecting there. But I'm fine doing that. He's still got a lot of years left here. He's in a great situation there at Penn State with their great strength and conditioning program. They've continued to produce freak athletes out of that program as well. Sky is really the limit with this kid.
Yeah, Nick Singleton's my RB1 as well. In the obviously, if you did a startup now, I really like him. Even with Catron Allen coming on the scene over there and stuff, I still, you know, obviously maybe taking some work off him. Someone that I didn't see taking work off him. I still really like Nicholson's and stuff like that. Doesn't bother me. I just look at the talent and see what he can do, and he can do it. You know, he's explosive. You know, he really pops off. You know, like, and gets them big yard plays, especially, you know, through the gap. So yeah, it's a great pick there. Love Nick Singleton. Yeah, just before I move on, do you have any problems with Coach Allen being there and stuff? You know, like some people like someone to take on more work and stuff, and like to take the percentage away from someone to say, oh yeah, this is, they look at him, they're going to him more because of that. For me, things like that don't matter. Is that something that you care about, or is it pure talent that you're looking at on the field? Yeah,
I think as Devy guys, we have to project the raw traits we see sometimes over the production. We've seen it with guys, even like this is no way of saying Singleton's not going to be productive. He's going to be productive, but even we've seen it with guys like Josh Jacobs or I think Alvin Kamara as well, guys who didn't produce at a really high rate in college, still making it into the NFL because of those traits. And, so I am betting on that a little bit. I'm not surprised, actually, that Katron got a little bit more work. This was a guy who came from IMG Academy, was more of a refined runner, in between the tackles than Singleton. I talked about Singleton's offense, how it was a lot of triple option to the outside and stuff like that. I think they relied a little bit more on Allen because maybe he was just a little bit more comfortable running in between the tackles at this point of their game. He was more field ready for that. But I honestly think as this progresses and Singleton gets more comfortable, he's going to be the guy that they continue to go to. There's even some spots where Katron Allen, if you look at some of his game logs, the efficiency really fell behind. He just doesn't seem overly dynamic to me. And I think as this split continues, it's going to be more of Singleton's backfield.
You mentioned you've got like 3 running backs at the top and you don't mind taking anyone. I'm hoping my next guy is one of them is Rocket Raheem Sanders.
Absolutely.
Next pick with the 105. I love this guy. He's for someone who's more of a north-south runner, who's like really powerful straight down. I'm so excited for him because I really think he's just going to be, whoever picks him up in the NFL, he's just going to be an absolute workhorse. And we always, when you're looking at running backs, it really excites you when someone pops off 40, 50-yard runs, 2 or 3 times a game. It's not even one game. I don't think you're going to get a lot of that from Sanders. He's not going to, but if a guy is every run's getting 4 yards, 5 yards, 3 yards, 6 yards, constantly work on. It's a bit, I know Derrick Henry can break off runs down them, but it's all about the points building up. So if you're giving him the ball constantly and he's just getting positive yards, I love that. And obviously he can bring other stuff as well to the game, but I just look at it for the fantasy side of it. I just think this guy could easily be a workhorse at the next level and just really pump up yards. Yeah, he has got to show a bit more in the pass catching. He has shown a little bit of that, but I'd like to see a little bit more. I'm guessing Sanders is in. You mentioned there is in your top 3. You don't mind taking. What do you love about Raheem Sanders?
No, absolutely. I have a little bit of a track record for loving a little bit of these. I mean, and you talked about how we haven't seen a lot of the receiving, but I'm here to tell you that I don't think that it's something you need to worry about in his profile a little bit. This guy played a lot of wide receiver in high school as well, and even in that freshman season, we saw him get split out wide. He caught a touchdown against an Alabama defensive back, like I don't even know, probably 4 or 5 star kid. I love this type of mold. This type of mold is like Antonio Gibson, David Johnson. These were the type of guys that were wide receivers at some point in their career that switched to running back. A guy in this year's freshman class, he wasn't drafted in this draft that we're doing, so I can mention him. But Cameron Seldon going to Tennessee, another guy who fits this kind of mold of a wide receiver running back. I love this mold because I feel like the upside is so high at the next level because he can develop into that pass catching threat and he can still be a very hard nosed runner. This guy's 230 pounds, 6'2", and brings a good athleticism for that size. I'm not going to say he's going to juke you out in short areas all the time. Like you were saying there's a little bit more of a power element to his game, a little bit more of a north-south type runner, but still, I still think all the pieces that he brings to the table is very exciting. I think even if you look early right now, consensus early boards, early 2024 boards, he's running back 1. So there's NFL draft analysts that are following the same kind of thought of theory here, and which I was a little bit worried about with him being at Arkansas if he was going to get the attention. But honestly, I was hoping you were going to let him fall to my next pick, to be honest, because I have a tough time between them at the 1. I just think that Singleton's maybe going to get more fanfare being at Penn State and stuff like that. But Raheem Sanders, I love that guy.
Yeah, you mentioned that he's not going to juke to the people, but he has got a cut in him, you know what I mean? And he can make people miss and stuff, but
absolutely, yeah,
not part of his main criteria of his game. But his main criteria of his games, the skills that he brings is really exciting. Like I say, I love watching. Like we mentioned off air with the UK, we get college football quite a bit more in UK, and we get quite a few Arkansas games being in the SEC, early and stuff. Especially not the last year, the year before, when there was quite good, So yeah, he's a fun one. So 106, I'm guessing. Well, I kind of know, but yeah, it's going to be your third running back in that 3.
Yeah, and I really do like to hammer the running backs early. I think they get pretty thin, and I also think it's position in the NFL that's fading, right? So the guys you really want are the top tier guys that you can bet on. Now you can hit on some of your lower guys and hope you land on a Kendre Miller and hope you land on something like that, but those guys are very far and few between. I feel really good about locking up a top guy at the end of running back. So with that being said, what are we at, 107?
106. Now,
106. Sorry. Yeah. I'm taking Travion Henderson of Ohio State. I still have high hopes for the kid. I personally can't forget how impressive that freshman season was. For me personally, one of the more refined backs coming out of high school that I've watched. You know, a lot of guys coming out of high school, they love to bounce outside, use that speed to go to the outside. He was very comfortable in between the tackles. He showed a maturity in between the tackles as a runner, attacking the middle of the defense. We saw that translate in year one, looked pretty good as a receiver as well. And then, you know, lost last year to injury, never really looked right. Even when he got on the field, didn't really look comfortable. There was rumors that Ohio State, that he wasn't happy with the way they handled his injury as well. But he did stick with them. There was no transfer rumors or anything like that. He seems to be fully healthy. They expect him to be fully healthy coming into the fall. I expect him to have a nice bounce back season, especially as they transition to a new quarterback now under center. They could potentially rely on the run game a little bit more. So maybe we see Henderson kind of return to that early freshman season and get that draft stock that maybe dipped a little bit from last year.
Yeah, it was like I say, it was like with the injury and stuff. It's something that obviously you can't foresee coming, and obviously that did affect him. Do you think? Obviously, when Travion Henderson was down, Meon Williams stepped up and did a really good job.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think, talent-wise, Travion Henderson is more talented than him? So if he comes back stronger, he's just going to take that work back off him, or are they going to share it out probably a bit more because of what Meon Williams did last year?
I think that Meon Williams is a really good college back in the sense that he's a hard-nosed runner that does what the coaches want, always falls forward, but I do not think he has the game-breaking ability of a Travion Henderson. I really think that if he comes back healthy, he's gonna be lead dog. I think it's gonna be a split. I'm not gonna say one guy's gonna get like a massive share of the thing. I mean, you remember back in the day with like Mike Weber and J.K. Dobbins back in the day when they were kind of splitting the workload. That's probably kind of the kind of split that maybe I see here with Travion Henderson and Meon Williams as well. But I do think Henderson will get the bigger piece of the pie.
So with 107 for me, I'm sticking from Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
We'll jump into a wide receiver. It's Emeka Egbuka, a guy who's kind of got lost behind the guys that have come out into the NFL, and obviously Marvin Harrison Jr. this year, but still a really good talent. You know, a bit different to the guys, and obviously with some similarities. But get the ball in his hand. He's so explosive off the line. You know, he can leave people dusting. He's going to get you these big, these big gains. You know, because he just leaves people in his wake, you know, winning it. Obviously, he's not at the highest standard as them, but he's still really good talent. When I'm looking at wide receivers drafting, I'm looking, can they beat people at the next level? Can they create separation?
Mm-hmm.
And obviously make big plays, and that's what obviously you want to see in the NFL, and he does it quite easily as well, you know, at times. So I feel he's just been lost behind the other top, like I say, better wide receivers. That's not a knock on him. I just think the talent at Ohio State is just unbelievable at wide receiver. But I still think he's a really good, solid wide receiver, and he'll have a career at the NFL level.
No, and we even saw it with Olave a little bit, where people discredited him a little bit because of the fact that he made everything look so easy. And that's kind of what Egbuka does too. He just makes everything look so easy, where you're just like, oh, well, he didn't like contested catch something against somebody. He didn't like do it much. Well, that's because he separated them from them 5 yards ago. He doesn't need to contest catch anything. He doesn't need to make a huge play or whatever, because he's just wide open all the time. Very smooth route runner. Just really makes everything look easy at the next level. I really don't have much to add here. I like this pick here. This is exactly where I would take him as well.
So with the 108 for you, Cory.
Yeah, and I think this is kind of a question for I. So I'm going to go here with Quinshon Judkins, Ole Miss running back, who had the fantastic freshman season last year. But even a question for you. I said that the top three are my tier one. Are you putting Judkins in that tier one as well?
Yeah, I like Judkins. He's a guy that I obviously knew him coming out of high school. I'd seen his name, but going into the backfield with, I think they had Zach Evans. They signed from transfer, Paul, and the other guy from the group of five. I can't remember his name now.
Ulysses Bentley from SMU. Yeah,
signed them. So I thought I just didn't see him getting much time. So it surprised me how well he did and stuff. And he obviously even took the work away from Zach Evans. He was that productive. He's. I'm not saying he's exactly the same as Raheem Sanders, but someone who just really, a big guy, like just makes people. It doesn't make people miss like as easy as people. He just sees that gap, boom, straight through it. he's got the power, the explosion, probably a bit more speed, I'd probably say it, I guess, than Raheem Sanders. But and this from his first season as a freshman, what's not to love of what you saw on tape for him, for Ole Miss. He basically was the Ole Miss offense last year.
No, I agree 100%. I mean, he pretty much had the freshman season that we dream about for our running backs. Like, honestly, this is if any running back had this, we'd be in love with him. So I've been toying with the idea that he's definitely in that top tier as well. I think that I need to include him as well. This is a guy too who runs tough, like we said, runs powerful, loves some old guys over. But I do kind of think that he can kind of string together some moves a little bit, cut in the open field. I think that it's something that he'll have to think about at the next level, how much he's able to do it, because I don't think the athleticism is all there. I compare it to somebody like David Montgomery coming out of Iowa State. This was a guy who forced like a record-breaking amount of missed tackles coming out of Iowa State. But at the NFL level, he struggled in that first year because his athleticism didn't allow him to be like the same shifty type of player at the next level. And he had to learn to, just pick up those 5 yards, pick up those 6 yards, pick up those 5. You can't make everybody miss all the time. And he became like a decent running back. He's had a nice career as an NFL running back. Now, that might be something that Judkins is going to have to do because he does like to dance around a little bit, I find. But it's the vision, it's the burst, it's the contact balance. It's a very similar combination to like a Nick Chubb. You know what I mean? And that's obviously not a comparison. I'm just saying that the skill set is much closer to that. So yeah, I'm very, very happy with him here at this draft pick.
Yeah, he's like I say, it's his first year as well, so he got 2 more years to watch him in college, which is going to be fun.
Yeah.
So with the 109, I stuck at running back here. I wasn't put. It's Braylon Allen for Wisconsin. He's not in the same team as the running backs before, but I just feel. I think one thing that I learned over the 4 years of playing Devy, I mentioned off air playing the 4 years, is just to have rankings, because Braylon Allen, obviously not the same as the running backs that I've got we've all picked before, but I think the drop off for me, obviously maybe not the same as other people, after Braylon Allen, is a bit superior to the guys that we're going to pick later on, the wide receivers and the thing. I feel like if I was, obviously we're going one after one at each other here, but if I was in that position, I'd say, I need to pick Braylon Allen, because if I come back round, I feel I'm going to get a good wide receiver or quarterback compared to the running backs, that are on the board still. I can get that. That's obviously, in my opinion, people might think differently when it comes to running backs. But yeah, obviously, he still had a really good season last year in his second year. But I still want to see him step up. But I still feel he's got the quality, the size and stuff, the attributes to do that and to be a good running back at the next level. I know a few people have kind of like dropped him in their rankings a little bit after last year, but I still. Yeah, it wasn't as good as his freshman season, but it's still a solid season for Wisconsin. Where are you with Braylon Allen at the moment, Cory? Have you dropped him in your rankings after last year, or are you still kind of like in the same position as you were?
I'm still kind of right around in the same area I was. The thing with him, there's some context there to the season. I think a lot of people, this is the problem with sometimes just looking at like the sheet of paper and not really paying attention to the entire season or whatever. This guy was dealing with a pretty bad shoulder injury for about the whole back half of the season, and he was just like going out there and trying to play through it and still coming up with some pretty good games. And I don't feel like he gets enough leniency for that. But like to me, it showed like some tough grittiness. It showed him, plenty of guys could have just, said, sit me down, go with somebody else. It's strong running game at Wisconsin. Let the other guy run. It will be fine for a couple games. Let me heal. No, he wanted to go back out there. He wanted to run hard. I love Braylon Allen. I kind of in the beginning, and he's kind of like a lesson for me in Devy, where I ignored him at first because linebacker coming in, had some pretty low test numbers as well, and then just kept breaking up big plays, and I go, this can't sustain. It's Wisconsin's running line. It's their offensive line. This can't sustain itself. So I missed out on so many shares. People are picking them up on waivers in C2C leagues, and I just kind of put them to the side. And it was a learning experience for me that, if somebody's doing this at this point, you have to put him on your radar. Another guy, just throw a name out here for you guys, like CJ Donaldson over at West Virginia, another 6'2", 240 guy. I don't love what I see on tape, but the guy is just making huge plays at that size. And it's same thing with Braylon Allen. When they're doing this at this kind of size and looking this good, you have to take account of them. Now, and even at Wisconsin, they're bringing a new system this year. Should allow him to run free a little bit more. He'll be fully healthy this year. I've loved the progression I've seen with him from day one as well. He's becoming a lot more of a natural runner. Love this pick here. I think he's in for a really nice season with Wisconsin this year.
Just to touch on, you made a good point there. With obviously sometimes when you're evaluating running backs, you forget as well, how good an offensive line can make a running back look sometimes, and sometimes you have to really dive deep, into the running back itself and see what he actually is doing himself rather than just the offensive line opening. That's why it's important to maybe go back sometimes and watch a few like videos and stuff of him, rather than just, if you're watching 2 games, you might see 2 games where the offensive line is absolutely brilliant and you see him just
exactly
carve out yards, but really he is actually a good talent and works the other way, where some people are actually an average running back, but they've got a good offensive line in front of them. So
right,
it's a good point what you made with the offensive line. So
AKA Blake Corum.
Yeah, well, I don't think he got picked up here, and obviously I'm not again. I'll go a little bit off topic here, but that's where I learned in Devy, where you can be a really good player at the college level. Doesn't mean you've got to take that transition and say, look, he might be a good player at this college level, but what could he bring when it comes to the NFL? And Blake Corum for me is a fantastic college running back. I just don't know if he's got the skills to be a good running back at the NFL level. And again, I know some people are higher on him and stuff, and it take away his injuries and things like that. So that's another thing that becomes even a harder thing to do when you're evaluating players, in Devy.
Yeah, no, and it touches on what exactly you said. He's got a great offensive line in front of him. You're watching a Blake Corum highlight. It's almost an offensive line highlight because they just got they're bringing out some big maulers there at Michigan. So, yeah, I mean, and we continue to see guys succeed in that system as well, which can be another, whoever they put back there, Donald Edwards, even Benjamin Hall, the freshman that got in the spring game running behind that line, had like a big day as well. So it just goes to show you that sometimes the system is the more important part sometimes, not exactly the talent. So you have to separate those things. You have to learn where to separate them. So it's a great point there as well. So I guess we're over here now at 110, which falls over to me. I'm going back to the quarterback Superflex League here, and I'm going with Mr. Drew Aller out of Penn State, 5-star quarterback. He's also a tier 1 quarterback for me. Which only 3 guys, Drake May, Caleb Williams, and Drew Aller. And I know it's kind of a projection, but we talked about this a little bit earlier. I feel like you have to be comfortable doing that sometimes in Devy. If you want to get ahead of the curve on a guy, you can't always wait to see it before you get in on a guy, or you're going to be paying top prices. And this is a pretty high price anyways, but but I'm just saying, sometimes you have to be able to feel comfortable projecting it. And even in the brief moments we saw him last year, I mean, like, first 4 passes of the game, I remember he got in relief of Clifford. I think Clifford got injured for a little bit. He dropped this beautiful ball in between 2 defenders, like the first pass coming off the bench, climbed the pocket, completed another beautiful pass downfield. It was all I needed to be sold on the guy. I mean, great size, 6'4", 232 pounds. He's got some lofty comparisons to Josh Allen out there, which I've mentioned twice now in this show, which isn't good. I shouldn't be comparing people to the best quarterbacks in the league, but I've mentioned it twice now. But I mean, he looked in the spring game, sailed down a little bit. I think he's a really impressive looking quarterback with a lot of tools and an immense ceiling here. So I'm happy with him here at the back of the first.
I'm definitely a Drew Aller fan. You mentioned Josh Allen, and I'm not really a massive person that does comparisons normally, because I'm really bad at them and people start calling you out on Twitter and stuff.
Yeah, I have to be careful with those.
But I see what you mean, because I was just about to say before you started mentioning Josh Allen, he really stands tall in the pocket, kind of like Josh Allen. He's the way he stands tall, it becomes like a confidence, in there. And like you say, the way he pings a ball and stuff, there is definitely similarities there. Obviously, he's going to have a full year. Obviously, we mentioned, touch wood, that there's no injuries to these guys. We don't see that. So with no injuries, full season with Joel, I think he's got some good players around him. He wasn't my number 1 guy coming out from last year with the freshman quarterbacks, but he's definitely the number 1 by quite a distance, I'd say. Even though I'm going to go to one with my next pick in a second, but he's still, for me, he's taken a bigger step than a few of the others. I'll mention my 111 pick now, so we can maybe go into detail with a few of these guys. It's Connor Weigman from Texas A&M. He was my number 1 last year, which might be surprising to a few guys, but I really liked him. I still do like him. I just don't think he's had enough chances last year. He obviously had a few snaps in games, and obviously had the back end, where he came in. But yeah, I still like him and stuff. But I think Drew Allard jumped in for me. He's a good player, but I still believe in Conor Wagman. I think he's got the talent, and he's going to have a full year this year to really show what he can do. Are these two guys from last year? The 2022 freshmen. Yeah, I've got that right. 2022 freshmen. Are these two quarterbacks still high on your list? Obviously, Drew Allard, you picked him at 110, but is Conor Wagman still there? And is who did you have ranked number one, I suppose, from last year?
No, I still have I have Wegman up there too. I guess depending on what you want to say with oh sorry, I was just looking at my ranking here. I actually have him at quarterback 7 right now, so I'm a little bit lower on him in total. I have a couple of the freshman quarterback that we will get to so that's overall, but he's still my number 2 in that class as well, just behind Drew Aller. They're only about 4 spots apart, with Drew Aller being at my 3rd. So they are still the top guys for me. We saw him in that game last year as well, where he did get the start. What was he? Over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, no pick. Like, he looked fantastic in that game. Like, so he has a decent weapons there too, as well, with another guy that we'll get into a little bit later on that got picked up here at wide receiver. I don't necessarily love the situation there at Texas A&M, but I think he's the type of player that can hopefully stand above it and hopefully bring, and like we were talking about with quarterbacks as well, raise the guys around him to become better players to play for him and learn the strengths and learn chemistry with these guys and how he can attack. So I'm excited to see what he can do in this season. He's probably a little bit more of a second round pick for me, maybe back of the second round, but still, I love you putting your balls on the table here and taking them here in the first round. I mean, that's what this is all about. If we all agreed on the exact same thing about where guys should go, then we'd all we wouldn't need to do any homework, right? So
right. Obviously, you get these guys in your draft as well. Sometimes, like you can know, like, I know that these guys don't like this guy, so I can probably leave him a bit later and stuff. But yeah, he's probably I think he's behind a couple of the freshmen, but like I wanted to throw him in there because, as well as like, obviously you got these new freshmen coming in the year. Sometimes like these people will come in and they're like brand new shiny toys out there from the 2023 freshman class, and you forget about these guys and stuff. And sometimes you can get good value from them as well, because these freshmen could jump in front of them. But with the 1012, I think you've got another second year guy coming off the board.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Luther Burden, wide receiver at Missouri. He was my wide receiver 1 last year. He's still my wide receiver 125. And some people I know are skeptical of that because of the situation over there. But this was a great segue for me also to talk about our Campus of Canton is developing a year 1-0 theory. Started off by Austin Hayes, one of our guys over there. It's been kind of worked on by even all the guys at C2C, continuing to look into it and see how it goes. Long story short, it's basically a set of thresholds that you have to hit as a freshman. And that, if you at least hit, one of them, that correlates to success at the next level, at the NFL level, at a high rate. And they're not high thresholds to hit. Okay. There's stuff like, I can't remember the exact 8 categories, but it's like 10 receptions, needing to hit that, or hitting 100 receiving yards, or 5 kick returns. It's 8 categories in total. And it just pretty much means, as a freshman wide receiver, you touch the grass. You played for your team. Luther Burden hit all 8 categories. He smashed them all out of the park. He scored a touchdown in 3 different ways: 6 through the air, 2 on the ground, 1 as a returner. He has like that build and yak ability that like the NFL craves at the next level. He's very much, to me, in the DJ Moore mold. And with Dominic Levitt moving on as well, the former number 1 receiver there at Missouri. Missouri also brings in a new OC this year who has a history of calling some more creative, dynamic plays on offense. I can't remember his name. I think it's like Drinkowitz or something like that. I can't remember exactly his name, but I think Burden could really be in for a big year this year. And I think his skill set, this is one of those things where people say, another guy we'll talk about a little bit later, was produced better. Why isn't he the top guy? This is one of those cases where I see the traits that I think the NFL is going to love. And I'm comfortable projecting him forward as my number 1 wide receiver in this class.
No, I agree with you there with Luther Burden. Obviously, you mentioned that if you don't listen to the podcast, back to Devy through the college to Canton, it gets brought up quite a lot of the year 1 wide receiver theory. And you mentioned Luther Burden hit all 3 categories that you like, and he did that on a team that wasn't the best defensive as well, which is always going to be a bonus as well. You know, he still managed to put them yards up, and you mentioned to get the ball in his hand, and he can create stuff. You know, he's definitely a guy that I like, and he's definitely a guy that I haven't dropped down the rankings. I'm still quite high on him going into year 2. So moving on to the second round, so the 201 for me, a guy that quite a lot of people are jumping off now, which for me, I feel a bit harsh. You know, I can see some of the points between you from Texas quarterback. I can see some of the points why people on there. Obviously, we're looking at Devy, looking at fantasy, and Quinn Ewers isn't the big rusher. You know, a lot of people are looking at, but obviously suffered with injuries last year, and I still think when he played well, when he was out there, he played well, and there's still a lot to like about him. Yeah, I want to see him step up, more, and show the why he came out as a 5-star guy. Obviously you forget he was at Ohio State. That was his first proper season playing last year, and he's moved from Ohio State to Texas. There's a lot of different things going on there, but I still believe in Quinn Ewers, but I also want to see him take a big step this year. Hopefully, put all the injuries behind him. He's a fantastic thrower. Hits all the levels on the field. But just needs to work a little bit. On ironing out a few things. But yeah, I'm still high on him. I don't know where you feel with Quinn Ewers at the moment, Cory. But yeah, I'm still in the camp, and maybe that might be a bit of stubbornness as well at the same time. But yeah, I still feel he's a good quarterback there.
No, I think you nailed a lot of the points that I talk about when I talk about Ewers as well. You nailed it about, this was the first year we really saw him, and he was off of football for 2 years. He left school early, went to Ohio State, didn't play it all that year as well. And then now he's just playing now. It's almost been 2 years since the guy had started a game, played for Texas and showed good moments. I think for me, it was just a lot of chemistry. I saw what I felt was making the right reads, and throwing the ball really well, and like you said, hitting all those different levels. But the chemistry was just off. We saw it with Worthy, him missing him down the field a bunch of times. He relied on Jordan Whittington a lot, which was like the short slot or the shorter target in the slot, easier completions. I think this is something that he's going to have to build over time, which I think will get built over time in the offseason. Now building chemistry with these guys, and I think we will see a lot stronger second starting season from Ewers. I actually still have him above Connor Wegman. So just to show you, I'm still very much in that camp as well. So I like the pick there. He's someone that I would target here at the beginning of the second as well.
It's good to know that you're still in the camp. I thought there's not many people that's still there, man. There's a lot of people jumping off him, so I'm glad you're there.
No, I mean we have a guy at our site, Matt Bruning, who just like he's a tier 1 quarterback for him still. He still thinks he's people are way too harsh on him after that year. He still thinks he's got 1.01 draft pick potential. So I mean, there's a lot of other guys out there I think are still in your camp.
That's good to know. For the 202, for you, Cory.
Yeah, I'm gonna head over to a guy I have alluded to in talking about Connor Wegman and talking about Texas A&M, but it's my wide receiver 2 in the 2025 class. That's Evan Stewart. A guy had a really, really good freshman season. Came in as a really good, refined prospect as well. I thought he had a chance to hit the field running because of how good he was coming into freshman. And that was a good thing going over to Texas A&M as well, a place that has had a really horrible track record with developing wide receivers in the past. So the fact that he could come in as a refined prospect, you didn't have to teach him a lot. He really stood out in year 1, almost 700 yards, strong at the catch point, acrobatic catches as well, creating separation, a really well-rounded prospect. And it's difficult to see a way that his skill set doesn't translate to the next level. I'm still on the fence if he's more of a 1 in like the Garrett Wilson Olave type role, or if he's more of a 2 as a complementary receiver in offense, more like a Devontae Smith type or something like that. So sometimes I battle with that, but he really does act like a number 1 wide receiver for this offense. And I think the sky's the limit for him. I'm hoping to continue to see him progress, which I'm sometimes worried about at Texas A&M.
Yeah, I was really impressed with him last year. I think he made some real clutch plays for Texas A&M last season. Catches where obviously he's not the tallest guy, Evan Stewart, but his athleticism to get up for high balls, in between, contested catches in between players was some great stuff I saw last year. Mm-hmm. And again, it's similar to, maybe not as drastic as Luther Burden's offense, but it still wasn't a great offense. Texas A&M, obviously, right. You mentioned that. So for him to put the numbers in his first year is obviously something that you look at and go, that's pretty impressive. So yeah, I like Evan Stewart. I think he's similar. I've got Luther Burden in front of him, but I like Evan Stewart as well, just behind him. I think he is just behind him in the rankings for me for for my Devy rankings. So 203, I've gone. It's going to be an interesting one. I don't think I rarely pick this guy in normal drafts as well, to be honest with you, but I throw him in here. It's Brock Bowers from Georgia, the 203. I've seen him go all over the place from 108 to this position.
Yeah,
I think I've plugged it a few times, but I'm going to plug it again. You had a great episode this week on Back to Devy, where you was going through the SEC teams, and it was a great conversation about Brock Bowers. I feel like a lot of people love him, and he can do some exceptional things, but obviously he's only 6'4". You mentioned it on the pod that it wouldn't be a surprise if he came in at 6'3". We know that size is always accurate when it comes to people being listed. But Brock Bowers, like I say, I do like him as a tight end. It's not someone that I'm like going out to draft, but I've thought I'd throw him in here with this 203 and get your thoughts on him. This was before, obviously, you had your podcast this week talking about him, but yeah, you made some great points on there, and like, how good can he be at the next level? Because he blows me away in college, but I still have questions about him at the next level. Thinking, I'm not saying that he's going to be bad, but I don't think he's going to be this like messiah tight end that a lot of people think he might be. Yeah,
I think he's going to be. I think the athleticism is going to be his calling card, right? I think he has the athleticism of like a bigger wide receiver. He's got like a 40-inch vertical. He's got like a 4.5 40 time. So I think teams might be looking to that. Like, I don't know if you listened to the Athletic Football Podcast show. Okay, they had a really interesting conversation about tight ends on there, where they're saying wide receiver value is going through the roof. You're having to pay guys like Odell Beckham off the street for how much they sign him for? Like freaking over $10 million a year. Like it's coming very expensive even to get the lower rated guys. So now I think teams are shifting and looking at what can I do with a tight end in that spot? Similar to how the Bills did it with Dalton Kincaid. They have Dawson Knox, but they really wanted a slot wide receiver. So instead of going and getting one, let's get Dalton Kincaid, a guy that can play in the slot, has some size, has some athleticism to him, and will eventually be cheaper for us in the long run than a wide receiver who hits the highs that we hope to see him hit as well. We're going to have to be paying him over $20 million a year. You're probably not going to have to do that with tight ends. So I thought that was a really interesting conversation in a way that I think the NFL could be shifting toward looking at tight ends like Brock Bowers, who spends most of his time not in line. He's constantly either in the slot or out wide or something like that. I think that's the type of role that we can see him at the next level. I mean, similar to an Evan Ingram, which was a comparison I made on the podcast, like the way he was using Jacksonville last year. He was out wide a whole bunch. He was in the slot. He didn't spend a lot of time in line as well. He had a pretty good season for Jacksonville. He was kind of used the way we always thought he should have been used in the NFL. So that's the kind of future I kind of see for Brock Bowers. I still think he's a good pick here. Now, I agree with you. I'm not a big tight end Devy guy. I don't target them as well. But this is the range that he should be going in. I think you're on mute.
Apologies there. I've got a bit of a cough. I forgot to come to it.
No worries.
So staying in Georgia there with you, Cory, I think.
Yep, I'm getting over to the running back room, and I am taking Mr. Branson Robinson. Looked great last year in limited time in mop-up duty last year. Showed contact balance, elusiveness, lateral ability. He's got the size you want at 5'11", 220 pounds as well. Some people want to say he turns like a battleship. I don't think that at all. I was actually pretty impressed with his ability to string together moves sometimes, some nice jump cuts, some quick execution as well, and some impressive contact balance at this size. I really think as long as health stays on his side, he's potentially the next Georgia running back to be drafted high in the NFL since, Nick Chubb and Sony Michel.
Do you think, obviously this year there's a couple of guys that are on the depth chart was in front of him. Do you think he will see a lot more work this year, or do you think he was going to have to wait till next year for him to really come out on, burst onto the scene? Just the way that, like, obviously Georgia running backs have gone over the last couple of years. That's how it's followed. From people previously. Yeah,
they typically kind of lean towards seniority a little bit. I think it was a plus that we saw Branson Robinson come in and then look as good as he did. I mean, we even saw, freshman Nick Chubb got an opportunity because Todd Gurley got hurt, and then he got the opportunity to show, and then he never looked back, right? So I'm just hoping that Branson Robinson showed enough in his freshman season that they're very excited about him and that they're going to want to get him a little bit more run. Kendall Milton has had a bunch of injury issues. The guy just can't stay healthy. He was somebody that I liked at one point, but I'm not even relying on this guy he's already injured. He already got injured in the spring. So I mean, like, it's just a repeating thing for him. Dejon Edwards, the other guy in front of him, he's just kind of like a an okay college running back. I don't see a big NFL future for him, kind of like Kenny McIntosh. He kind of seems like that type of guy. I'm hopeful that Branson's going to climb out of this and he's going to eventually be the guy at some point in the season. I don't know if it'll happen out the gate, but I'm hopeful that, like, cream rises to the top, as they say, right? So I'm hoping that he's the guy that's going to rise to the top in this backfield.
Yeah, exactly. Moving over to me with the 205, I think it's the first time I've probably gone a little bit spicy here and stuff, this early. But he's a guy that I don't really like massively using the term "my guys," but he's a guy that I really love. A Pac-12 guy as well, which is obviously another reason why. But Titoria McMillan from Arizona, a guy that came out last year, from the freshman class. Who obviously there were people talking about him, but I don't feel like there was enough talk about him. I really like him. I think he can do a lot of things really well. We saw quite a bit of him last year. I'm not sure. I feel like he hit definitely one of your first-year wide receiver targets last year. I don't know what they are and stuff, but yeah, I feel like he hit one because he showed quite a bit of production there. Behind two guys as well that took a lot of the shine from him, but still managed to get on the field. Probably going to see a lot more this year with Dorian Singer going over to USC. Great at the catch, at the catch point. He's quite a physical guy. When it comes to wide receivers, I like a bit of size and stuff, and he's got that. I'm looking forward to him watching him this year, and hopefully he can put even more of them moves that we saw last year on tape. Like I say, we did see a little bit of him last year, so hoping to see a lot more of him this year and really propel his stock. And then maybe a lot more people will be on him then.
Yeah, like this is almost like we've been talking about with projecting with this whole show. You're projecting that this is kind of where he's going to be being taken next year, which I don't think is crazy at all, given like the production he's going to have early in his freshman season. The analytics guys are going to love him because of all the thresholds he's hitting early on, and going to continue to do it throughout his career as well. I was kind of hard on him early in the career because I will say that like possession wide receivers, guys that don't get like a ton of separation, bigger, larger wide receivers, maybe aren't as fluid as movers, like. That's typically an archetype at wide receiver that I tend to shy away from. So I was like really hard on him early. Like I had him at like wide receiver 30 overall. Okay, until I actually got to watching him a little bit. So this is off season. I looked around. I started turning around a little bit. I didn't give him enough leniency for room to grow. A guy like Drake London, for instance, USC. You watch his freshman tape. It wasn't like amazing, right? But the player he became by the time he was a junior before entering the NFL season, he showed a lot more footwork, showed a lot more ability to gain separation, even if it was a little bit more physical at times. I got to give McMillan the chance to grow as well. Yeah, it was a lot of contested catches. Yeah, it was a lot of physicality and stuff, but he's relying on what works for him early in his career. And I want to see him progress a little bit more still. And I think that it can happen. At first I was against it, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that he can keep progressing and become a little bit more of a fluid mover.
So with the 206 Cory.
All right, I'm heading over to my quarterback one of the upcoming class. That's Malachi Nelson going off to USC. Just a guy that starts off with some really impressive arm talent, and not from like a pure raw strength standpoint, but the accuracy, anticipation is something you don't see from a lot of guys, but he throws it very well. The ability to make every throw as well and still rifle it in there if needed. The arm strength's not a problem. I'm just saying this goes beyond just having a rifle for an arm. I thought he looked like if not the best in this class in those categories. And then like we talked about with Caleb, I think the big thing here is being hooked up to Lincoln Riley. There's no avenue here where the value is going to drop for him, right? The minute Caleb Williams becomes a first round pick, everybody's going to be looking for the next USC quarterback, right? And who's that going to be? That's going to be Malachi Nelson, right? So if anything, it's going to rise throughout the offseason just by doing nothing. Just because of the fact that he's going to be Lincoln Riley's next QB, everybody's going to want him. He's got the good size. He's got a little bit of weight issues. He's sub 200 pounds, so we're going to have to see him add a little bit more, but he's got the weapons around him. He's got everything that you need to succeed. It's just tough not to want Riley's next quarterback. And again, you have a year here to play around with insulated value, even if you wanted to sell him at some point, if that's the route you want to go. It's only going to increase from here.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Malachi Nelson. Obviously, he'll be playing in the over in the Big Ten as well next year. I think it is in 2025. Is that right?
Yeah.
2024. So another big stepping stone for him over there as well. If he's going to be the starter over there straight away, obviously we'll see. Maybe at the 207, I'll throw my pick in just for a discussion. It's Arch Manning over at Texas. obviously, I'm going to throw a question back to you, Cory, because obviously I mentioned like I'm from the UK, so when I'm looking at guys that are just coming out into college from high school, yeah, we've got the highlights tape on YouTube, but it always shows you the best bits and things like that. So I've mentioned this on a couple of the podcasts previously. How do you evaluate? You know, like obviously, I don't know if you can get hold of tape easy, or it's the same where you're just going on YouTube looking at the plays that they put up, or how do you evaluate guys coming from high school? Are you looking at where they're playing? Is like obviously if they're putting up high numbers in a place like obviously in Texas or in California and stuff, is that where you're thinking, oh, well, there's something about these guys or the type of school they came from? What are you looking at, you know, from guys coming out of high school? Is it still difficult to evaluate them coming out of high school, even in the US?
Yeah, absolutely. It's still difficult. I will say that, you know, I like to get as much information as I possibly can, you know, whether he was dealing with an injury, whether he had whatever else going on, whether there was situations inside the team or he was in a battle with somebody else, or if he changed the level of competition. That's another big part of it. The level of competition he faced, how big is his transition going to be to the next level? I think what I have to give a lot of love here for is we have a C2C recruiting team. Okay. And these guys, the work they are doing is absolutely amazing for what we did. They have subscriptions to where they're watching full high school games. Okay. And they're charting routes. They're charting what routes they run the most. They're charting miles per hour. They're charting velocity for quarterbacks, how fast that ball is coming out. They're charting all these things, and we get access as the Devy team to those things. So we have a much more complete picture, I feel like, than a lot of other people out there who just go and toss on the huddle tape, watch their tape. Oh, I like how he makes a move here. I like how he makes it. Yeah, it's all highlights. Of course, you're going to like that. These guys are watching a play-by-play basis on how things develop for them, where they're playing, how the season went for them, if they were dealing with a negging it. Like, we have all that information. That is so key. It allows us to be a little bit more aggressive on freshmen because we feel like we got a more complete picture about them. So I really have to give it to the C2C recruiting team there for the work that they're doing. They're going above and beyond when it comes to the freshmen that are coming out.
So yeah, you heard it here first. Make sure you get over there, and if you're using College to Campton, like I say at the top of the episode, it is a fantastic place to get information and stuff, and the podcasts are all absolutely brilliant. So moving on to 208 is one of those freshmen that you'll be talking about where you get access to the one that a lot of people are excited about.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, this is my running back, one of the class. That's Mr. Cedric Baxter going over to Texas. Guy that brings size and speed to the equation. Our recruiting team has him clocked at 21.7 miles per hour. Plenty of fast at a guy that's 6 foot, 215 pounds. And just a guy that seems to have eyes on the back of his head, on the sides of his head. Always seems to do a good job finding a cutback lane or finding the opening in traffic. It's a type of instincts that I saw. If you haven't gotten this yet, I'm a comparison guy. I love to make comparisons because I think people can visually see it in their head sometimes if they don't know how to play, and I can give you something. These are the type of instincts that I saw with Breece Hall when he came out of high school as well. Just like an uncanny ability to be in the right place at the right time. And at Texas, I know it's in a muddled backfield right now. A lot of people like Jadon Blue from last year. Jonathan Brooks is said to be the guy. I still think Cedric Baxter could be the best talent in this room. We talked about it a little bit before with Cream rising to the top. I think he's the type of guy that maybe like mid-season can climb to that top and have a really strong back half of the season.
Yeah. So with the 209 for me, I had a run on Texas players here. So
yes, sir.
Xavier Worthy. I still really like this guy. Obviously, you might comment on this after I've finished talking. Like, obviously, the size is going to be a massive question, but we've seen guys go into the NFL probably with a little bit more size. He's probably, I don't know if he's put any more weight on since the last time. So I think he was 165, but I don't know if he's putting more on. But take that away from it and maybe take away the drops that we saw last year, especially in the bowl game, which were I think there were like 3 or 4 he had against Washington. Yeah. He'd taken the top off the DBs, and he would just all he had to do was catch the ball and he's away. But it's let it slip through his thing. Hopefully, it's not a recurring thing next year. But take them 2 sides of it away. This guy is route running. His separation is some of the best I've seen. In college. There's a clip that does the rounds on Twitter and stuff where he's on the goal line where he sends this guy like off for an ice cream. It's just so slick and smooth. And look, you take all that, he's a fantastic wide receiver. But obviously, how big a concern? Is it for you with weight? Is it something where if you see he can get open in college and things like that, then it's not a massive concern for you, but it's still there in the back of your mind going into the NFL?
It is still going to be there in the back of my mind. I think the speed is going to be his calling card, obviously. I think once he tests like that and then like the early production that he's had, where he's at, he's going to get the attention he needs to get the opportunity at the NFL, whether that's a first-round pick or an early second-round pick or something. I think he's going to get that opportunity at the NFL level. I think the NFL has shown a little bit more leniency towards size. Even guys like Jordan Addison this year, they drafted Tank Dell in the second round. Even Zay Flowers wasn't a big guy. I mean, he was a little bit stockier than Worthy is, where he's like 165 or something right now. So I'm still hopeful that we are going to see some kind of weight increase, but I mean, we just might not see it. You might have to accept this as being like a red flag on his profile. Just how you're going to weight that personally is kind of up to every person. For me personally, I like this spot for him. Like I'm not gonna take him any higher than this. I don't think back of the second, early the third, because I think that there is a little bit of risk with that size of the profile. But I'm still pretty hopeful that he can succeed at the next level. I think there's enough traits there that I like, that I think it'll trump his size at least.
So the 210, Cory, another freshman for you.
Yeah, I know. I'm taking a lot of freshmen. And this is what I was saying about C2C. It allows us to be a little more aggressive on these guys. And I just see a lot of guys that can increase in value. And sometimes it's the value game. It's just buying guys that you think are going to be either here by next year or won't lose any type of value. They become very nice tradable assets, especially in the Superflex league. So back to the quarterback. Well, my quarterback 2 of the class, Dante Moore, heading over to UCLA. Extremely refined, very clean mechanically. Started all 4 years varsity, including 2 championship wins as well. Was the best quarterback at the All-American game, threw for like 4 touchdowns and no turnovers as well. So coming in with a ton of experience already, already making waves at UCLA. Chip Kelly has had no problem attaching himself to young quarterbacks in the past with Marcus Mariota, Dorian Thompson-Robinson he just had as well, played them as a freshman. So I really think he's a guy that we can see sooner rather than later. He's a tier 1 guy for me in this class. I think he's very underrated in this class, to be honest, because I think people don't see like the flashy arm talent or the flashy mobility. I think he's probably one of the cleanest prospects coming out this year.
I think you made a good point there, because I remember when I first started playing Devy, I made that same mistake where I was drafting guys for me as my team, where I think these guys are going to go onto my team in the NFL and they're going to be hopefully studs and stuff, but really you also can throw it into the thing where you're drafting these freshmen, like you mentioned, where you draft them at these positions. You might not be massively high on them at the same time, but you're thinking, am I going to get more trade value if they have a good year this year, where I can, you're looking at that side of it as well. And that's something I didn't do when I first started playing. I think it's a really important thing to look at when you're playing Devy as well, not just picking guys that you think are going to be on your team. Think about the trade value, where you could get some guys from, trading with the, for NFL, depends what situation you're in as well with your team, as well on top of that. But yeah, it's a really good point. It's something that especially new guys probably don't think about when they're playing Devy. But yeah, it's just something that you mentioned that was a good point. 211 for me, I'm sticking at quarterback, but I'm going Devin Brown from Ohio State. I still like that. He's quite high for me last year, Devin Brown in the rankings. He slipped down a little bit, but no fault of his own. Obviously, we haven't seen him yet. I was really hoping that he would beat Kyle McCord out for the really push forward. That'd be great. Obviously, he still might, but the talk is that Kyle McCord's going to be that guy. I know that it's just the way that some teams do it sometimes, where it can be a little knock on him as well, saying that like, oh well, he's still not ready, but they like to go for the experienced guys. But I'm not a massive Kyle McCord fan, so I would be upset if Devin Brown doesn't beat him out for the job this year, or at least comes in partway through the season. If Kyle McCord ain't playing well. How do you feel on Devin Brown? Would you prefer him to win out this year, or are you high on Kyle McCord?
No, I am not. I'm actually with you. And actually, I'm a lone ranger over at the company, because everybody's kind of in on the Kyle McCord a little bit. And I'm a little bit apprehensive about it. I don't think that he looked that good in the spring game. But like, he had the opportunity to slam the door shut and not even make Devin Brown a thing with his performance this spring, with Devin Brown recovering from the hand surgery. But he didn't do that. Like I think Devin Brown is an NFL caliber type arm. I think he could, if he's as good as we think he is, I think there's a chance here that he could overtake, in the summer if he looks good enough. I mean, I know a lot of things are looking in Kyle McCord's direction, but I really think the talent level is there. I still have him ranked higher than McCord right now. I've got them close because I'm starting to accept the fact that I might just be wrong and it's going to be McCord that starts. Maybe they're just going to go with the seniority a little bit, but yeah, I definitely like him better as a prospect.
Yes, the amount of times that I've been wrong and stuff, it's like you mentioned earlier on in the episode, fantasy would be no fun if we were right all the time, would it? And stuff.
No, exactly. We got to learn from our mistakes, right?
Yeah. So finishing off round 2, to you, Cory, the 212.
Yeah, I'm going with LSU wide receiver Malik Neighbors. And I think some people are on him this high, some people are a little bit lower on him, but I'm a big fan of Malik Neighbors. He's someone who caught my eye 2 seasons ago when he had to step in for Kayshon Boutte as a true freshman. Mainly played out of the slot that year, didn't have a lot of wild plays, but did enough to grab my attention. And then this year just took it to a whole other level. I mean, it's playing inside and out. His hands got better. He had a 17% drop rate in 2021, improved to 4.5 this season. The yak ability got better, became more dynamic, forced the most missed tackles by a wide receiver in the SEC last year. So he's becoming this player. And again, we're looking at another projection. If he projected this much this year, what kind of step is he going to take again in another year? I think he's a top 5 wide receiver in next year's class, maybe even a top 3 wide receiver in next year's class, and a potential first rounder next year.
Yeah, he's definitely someone that's getting a lot of first round buzz, in Devy leagues that have been going 2 or 3 years. That a lot of people have, in the smaller ones, maybe like the 4 or 5 round ones each year.
Yeah,
the guy's been picked up a lot in the first round now because people are on him now after last year, and especially like I say, with Jaden Daniels there, he did a lot of work with his legs, but when he did throw, a lot of it was to Malik Neighbors. We know about Kayshon Boutte, the drop off of him, but he still really outshone Kayshon Boutte and people there. So I think the sky's the limit for him going into this year with Jaden Daniels still there. So yeah, he's someone that I really like, especially after watching last season. He was really good. This is going into the third round now. This we laughed about this stuff. This is definitely a homer pick for me. As a Huskies fan, it's Rome Odunze, Washington. I suppose a little bit, you mentioned they're a bit opposite too. I love these big guys, and yes, there's something about them, where they might not be able to separate as well as the small guys, but if they're really good in the contested catches, and especially for Rome Odunze, like I think for Washington, obviously this year with last year, with Kalen DeBoer, the year before was a tough year with Jimmy Lake and everything that came with that, but he still managed to step up, and they still went to get the ball in his hand. And last year he was the guy. They've got Jalen McMillan there, another good wide receiver, and they was trying to get the ball in Rome Odunze's hand, and if that's like end arounds and things like that, and that's always a positive for me. Just like I say, a big guy, he's not gonna beat you with speed, but contested catches and just getting himself open, like just breaking those seams, in zone. Someone I really like, and like I say, he's not probably going to be that wide receiver one guy at the NFL, but I feel he's going to be a really good complement to a team, wide receiver 2, 3 next year. And like I say, maybe a little bit of a homer pick. So I'm interested to see how you feel about that, Cory, with Rome Odunze.
No, I don't hate it. I mean, he's already getting first round buzz. So I mean, I like it, you're even betting on that a little bit, adding that into his profile. Now I know a lot of guys get first round buzz at this time before next year, so it'll completely change by next year. But he's lined up to have another massive season there. Everybody returns in that system. The offense returns, your quarterback returns. Nothing is different. And he himself has been like growing as a player. I mean, this spring, you looked at all the reports. He was apparently the best Washington player in camp, out of defense, out of offense, out of everybody. He was apparently the best player, the most improved. He added some weight this offseason. People are saying he pretty much looks unstoppable. So I'm eager to see what kind of tools he's put together here, what he's worked on in the offseason, how he's going to look. I think my one thing I would maybe pin on him a little bit is I wanted to see some more yak ability. Maybe I thought there was opportunities where he could have continued to play, maybe broke away a little bit. I want to see a little more physicality for a guy of his size. I expect to see that a little bit more. But other than that, I think he has all the makings of a true X wide receiver for an offense at the NFL level. 3.1 is maybe a little bit high for me. I might start looking more around the 4th, 5th round for those guys. Actually, I have both of them pretty close, which is Jalen McMillan, which we didn't draft, so I can mention his name. But Rome Odunze and McMillan are both 4th, 5th round targets for me in startups.
Well, that's fair. Like I say, it was a bit of a home pick, but
yeah,
we've got to do it as well.
Of course.
Definitely that. Really, like I I say, I enjoy watching and stuff as well. So as well as like obviously you want to be competitive, you also want to have some of your guys on your team as well at the same time, which is I feel like
there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, I definitely did that a couple times as well.
So moving on to 302 for you, Cory.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk about. Oh, here we go with another freshman. I promise I'll try to talk a little bit faster because I'm probably talking your ear off a little bit here. But again, going with another freshman here, Justice Haynes going over to Alabama. Probably one of the more dynamic runners in the class. The kind of guy that like can do has the vision and athleticism to do like the Barry Sanders reverse field and cut against traffic and go the opposite way that he's not supposed to, that every coach hates, but gets away with it because he's that dynamic of a runner and can navigate traffic really well and has the type of fluid ability to laterally burst speed. He has all that in his thing. He's probably the closest thing in this backfield to like a Jahmyr Gibbs type, which I really don't have there, which makes me think they're going to want to get him involved. We saw him in the spring game as well, get pretty involved. A very good player against strong competition in high school. One of the things we talk about that we'd like to see in the freshman profile. So I think he's a very special runner at the top of this class, which I think the top of this running back class drops off pretty hard after the top two guys that I've taken already. So I'm making it a priority to get at least one or two of the one or both of them in my drafts when I'm drafting my startups.
It's interesting what you say about the freshman running backs there. Moving on to the quarterbacks, I'm going to take another one from the freshman class at the 303. I hope people don't have a go at me for trying to pronounce his name again, because I don't think I've got it right on any podcast. But it's Nicholas Ayamalieva.
That was good. That was good. Good job.
Yeah. It's one of them things where it's easy to say offline, but then when you've got the pressure of being on a podcast and stuff, it becomes even harder to.
Yeah.
But I picked him up as another freshman. Just a guy that I really like. I'm not going to see him this year. I think Joe Milton will have that job this year, but next year I'm looking forward to potentially seeing him. He's got a lot of. I really like him as a thrower. You saw him in the spring game hit a few shots on the sideline and took it into these tight areas, outside the hashes, which was nice. I suppose just a quick question before we move on to 304. How you mentioned the two running backs, like you say, that after the fall after them, this quarterback class is a lot of people are getting excited about this freshman quarterback class. Are you feeling in a similar position?
Absolutely. I think running back probably strikes me as the weakest. It's top heavy with those two guys at the top. Quarterback is 5 deep. If I can walk away with one of those 5 guys, which is the other one wasn't drafted here, so I can at least mention him, which we talked about drafting in this draft, but I guess we just want to talk about other guys. But it's Malachi Nelson, Dante Moore, Nico Yamalieva, Arch Manning, and Jackson Arnold, which went undrafted in this draft. Would probably be drafted in another draft, but we just wanted to talk about some other guys. But again, if I can get one of those 5 guys, I'm pretty happy. They are the cream of the crop in this freshman class.
Yeah, it's like I say, it's very exciting, like these guys, and I'm same as you. I'm not fussy in which ones I grab. If like I'm in a position where some are going to fall before me, as long as I can get one of them, I'm going to be quite happy. So back to you with a 304.
Right, and I'm going to go with a guy that wasn't on a ton of people's radars, at least. He was on some radars last year, but that's Mr. Berrien Brown, wide receiver going into Kentucky. A great freshman season last year, extremely electric athlete, 6'1", a little bit slender. Same thing with Xavier Worthy. I think he's around 168 pounds. So again, we're going to need to see that come up a little bit. But he was a safety valve last year for Levis, and led his team in receiving as a true freshman. Clocked at 22 miles per hour by a recruiting team. That's very high number. Very athletic guy. Excelled as a kick returner. The type of guy that you can just get the ball in his hands and makes it easy to call offenses, right? You just watch him work. He did some nice stuff down the field as well. Really graded out analytically, if that's your cup of tea as well. Over 2.4 yards per route run. Really good number for freshman season. Graded really well versus man in zone. I just want to see that route tree open up. I want to see the weight get added a little bit, but I think the sky is the limit for this guy as an NFL prospect.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to see Kentucky next year, because obviously we got Baron Brown there. I don't think we drafted
Dane Key.
Dane Key's a good guy. Obviously, they've got a new quarterback there. I think it's Leary, isn't it, coming over from NC State?
Yep.
So that's going to be an interesting watch. But yeah, I like Dane Key as well. So two good guys. But Baron Brown's a guy that was picked up in deeper drafts last year, but a guy that I'm still fond of. So I'll be watching out for him next year. With 305, I went back to the freshman class. I know it's a guy that you guys like over there and stuff. I've heard you talk about him a little bit. It's Jurian Dickey from Oregon. I really like what I saw on tape. Like I say, they always put up the good stuff, but what I did see, I really liked. I was hoping to probably see a little bit, and this is what you mentioned on your podcast, hoping to see a little bit of him this year. And there's still a chance we have, but obviously they've brought Brighton Jr. over and stuff, so I don't know how much that hinders him. But obviously, I still think there's a chance we'll see a bit, but obviously it's put a bit of doubt in my mind. But I know, Cory, you're a fan of Jurian Dickey.
Oh, absolutely. And he's one of the guys, this wide receiver class for this freshman class, and not a class that brings a lot of size, except for Dickey at the top of this class. He really brings that size that we want to see. He's a type of guy that I'm keeping in my top 5s from this class. He's been floating around a little bit. He's been as high as 3 at some points. He's right around 5 right now, but I don't see him falling anywhere below that. I really like him. And like you said, they're bringing in a lot of transfers as well, but this is a very strong offensive team. They're going to have their fair share of blowouts. Maybe they want to get the young guys in the game. That's where I'm hopeful that he might break some of those year 1-0 thresholds as well, because he really is one of those big guys with some fluid movements that you can really see excelling, kind of like in that AJ Brown mold, if you want to be lofty with it. But he's that type of mold of player that I just hope that we can see him at least early on in his career.
Yeah, I think sticking with wide receiver at the 306 for you, Cory.
That's right. I'm heading back to the 2025 class, and I'm taking Clemson wide receiver Antonio Williams. Really broke out as the only consistent wide receiver for Clemson last year. It was like essentially the go-to guy for them. Very inconsistent passing attack. They were struggling with quarterback play between DJ Ugalele and Kate Klubnik at the end of the year, who just didn't look that ready. But Antonio Williams, to his credit, was a very good route runner, very fluid mover, really excelled at the catch point, made himself an easy target for these guys, which is really good. Was really only limited to a slot role, so I do want to see that versatility expand a little bit as well. But good athlete. We've got him clocked at 21.5 miles per hour, so plenty of juice there. There's a lot of things lining up. Hopefully, we see Klubnik take the step, which another surprising guy didn't get drafted this draft was Mr. Kate Klubnik, but maybe me and you share our similar thoughts on there, where we're a little bit worried about where he's headed. But again, this guy, hopefully we see Klubnik take that second step, and in return, we see Antonio Williams kind of take that next step as well.
Yeah, I'm probably same as you. I want to see Kate Klubnik take that next step, but I have a little doubts about him moving on. But I'd love, obviously, I'm not a guy that throws hate, so I'd love to see him take that step and propel, especially obviously Antonio Williams stock. With the 307 for me, I'm picking Damian Martinez from Oregon State, running back. I could probably take him a lot later, to be honest with you, but I've thrown him in there because I just wanted to have a conversation. I feel, obviously, playing Devy, I've watched college football a little bit longer. I feel, and I think you agree, I think there's quite a lot of people that turn off when Pac-12 comes on. So I think there's quite a lot of value there. If, it's not your seasoned Devy players who go back and watch film. People who are really into Devy. People who make content. Obviously, go back and dive into it, and you pick up these guys. But there's a lot of people that don't, and I think there's great value to be had from these Pac-12 guys if you believe in them and stuff. Because there's a lot of people that will just fade them because they don't know who they are unless they've been listening to content creators. If they don't, so that's why I put him in there. But like I say, I could probably pick him up a lot later, but he's really good. He had a great freshman season, Damian Martinez, Oregon State. Obviously, didn't see much pass catching, and I don't know how much we will see from him. It's going to be determined, at Oregon State. Obviously, I can't remember who was Oz the year before who came out. He didn't really get much pass catching either and stuff running back. So I don't know how much we'll see. Hopefully we do, but as a runner, really great, powerful, dynamic. I love that from his freshman season.
Yeah, and he's got things that you can hang your hat on, right? I think sometimes when we're looking at running backs, whether we're talking about Raheem Sanders, he's got the versatility that I love. Whether we're talking about Braylon Allen, he's got the unique size. Like Damian Martinez, a guy, again, that we can hang our hat on with, apparently up to 230 pounds, running over 21 miles per hour. So he's got that size-speed ratio that'll grab the attention of the NFL. And yeah, there's not a lot of pass catching in his profile, but he profiles as a potentially like high-volume guy. And potentially a really good early down runner at the next level. I don't know if we'll ever see the pass catching, like you said. Sometimes that happens with quarterbacks as well. Will DJU or throw him the ball a little bit more? Will Childs throw him the ball a little bit more? We'll have to see what ends up happening there. But Hopefully he can add that little bit to his profile, but he is a top 20 Devy running back for me. This is definitely a little bit high, but again, you just want to talk about your guy, and I respect that. And I really think that he could be a massive climber. I mean, what was he? When he finally got the starting role, it was like over 100 yards in like every game, right? Like rushing. It was like he had like an insane season last season. So I really like that pick there from you. You inspired me though, because you went and took your guy at running back. So I had to go at 308 and get my guy at running back, Mr. Trey Benson from Florida State. Guy that came back from a very gruesome knee injury, was originally an Oregon commit. Didn't know how much time he would even get, or if he would even look anything like the player that I thought he would look. But didn't touch the ball a whole lot in the beginning of the season. But after week 7, averaged 16 carries a game for 123 scrimmage yards, scored 1.3 touchdowns a game for the rest of the season. Super impressive second half of the season. And that's just the raw stat line, okay? So on that limited workload, 150 something carries, finished top 3 in missed tackles forced in the whole league, finished top 3 in yards after contact per attempt and breakaway percentage out of all Power 5 running backs. His forced missed tackle rate, and I keep counting the tables, I say this on every show that I went, it was the highest in college football. Okay. And that's like, it's insane. It's better than Bijan Robinson, who like forced like 1 million missed tackles last year, but his rate, how often he was forcing a missed tackle per carry was insane. It would like broke PFF records or something like that. So we're looking at a guy 6'1", 222 pounds, after being 250 pounds last year. I see Javonte Williams when I look at him sometimes. That's honestly the comparison I've been going with a little bit. So I've got him as a top 5 running back next year. Currently actually as my running back 4. Very excited for his potential.
I think he's definitely a climber, you know, like a lot of people. I'm probably not, if you just play normal dynasty mode, people don't know much about him. He's going to be a real climber there as well, you know. What impressed me with him is like how I think I'm right in saying that like early on there was quite a bit of shared backfield, and he just started taking the volume off people and he started performing later and stuff. That's always a good sign. But yeah, another guy that I'm quite high on, you know, Trey Benson and stuff, and I've got a few shares in him. So 309, a second to last pick for me. I've gone back to the to the rookies this year, and it's Brandon Inniss from Ohio State. Obviously got the Ohio State draft thing, which is great. But obviously you've got to look at the player. But Brandon Inniss looks like he could be a really good player. He's very explosive. You know, he's probably a similar mold to some of the guys that have been there already. So hoping to see some good things from him going forward. There's a couple of guys there. I don't think I won't mention them. I don't think we drafted the other wide receiver there that goes. Oh no. Yeah, you check.
We almost did. I changed it. Yeah.
Canel Tate as well. Yeah, we nearly drafted him, but I can talk about him. So a couple of guys there that are obviously going to be going in Devy drafts, but Brandon Inniss for me is someone that I'm really excited about.
Yeah, and he's much more the savvy guy. The other guys are kind of like, you know, athletic, a little bit raw at the position compared to Inniss, who comes in as probably the best route runner of the crew. And I know he wasn't there during the spring, but he could probably step in and contribute early on if they need him to, honestly. But they're always bringing in guys. There's always stuff like, you know, Keon Graves was a guy we were super high on last year. And, you know, now has fell victim to the amount of people they constantly bring in. You know, there's always that risk when you're taking guys because they're bringing in so many every year. Again, next year's class, they're bringing in like the top wide receiver again next year. So there's always the risk that one of these guys can fall behind. But you just got to put your chip somewhere. I like putting them on Inniss or Carnell Tate. Those are my 2 top guys of their thing. Noah Rogers has a little bit of love too. He looks pretty good out there. But for my second to last pick, I'm heading to the freshman. Is this our last freshman? This is our last freshman. We went freshman crazy this draft. my second to last pick, I'm going Zachariah Branch, USC wide receiver commit. Really exciting prospect. He's a little bit small, unfortunately, but really chiseled, stocky build, extremely sudden in his movements. This was a guy recorded 10.3 second 100-meter dash time, which potentially puts him in the range to be a 4.3 40-yard dash type player when all is said and done. He's really the type of guy that we hope is in the mold of like a Tyreek Hill or a Jalen Waddle. That's the type of player you're hoping for with a 5-star prospect, number 1 ranked prospect across a bunch of services. So you're hoping that that's the upside. Again, but with smaller players, there's always a downside that they won't exactly hit those lofty goals you want to see. But like we were talking about earlier, we're seeing the NFL, you know, go toward be more lenient with size. He's an incredible athlete, dynamic with the ball in his hands. USC couldn't stop raving about him. So set up with a good situation there with a good offense. I have to take a chance on him here, even with a little bit of the height concerns.
No, that's fair. With my last pick, it's someone that I don't normally draft, but I wanted to throw him in there because I have drafted him in past Devy drafts as well because of the talent that was on the table. It's Will Shipley from Clemson. I'm probably a bit disappointed with what stocks I've got now, and obviously I put him in here because I just feel that there's some good things about him. But for me personally, I just think that I haven't seen him take a game by the scruff of the neck and be that guy to propel Clemson, into winning positions. I feel like he's good at, he's got good athleticism to get away from, like jukes and stuff to get out of like tight situations. But as soon as he's hit, I think he's like knocked backwards and stuff. I think it's tough for him. But I just wanted to put him in there just to talk about him and see where you feel, how you are with Will Shipley, because I was someone that I probably got quite a few shares on early because he was someone that excited me, and it kind of put him in here to show that it's not always you're not always guaranteed when you draft people at the top from you can get burnt.
Yeah, no, he's the type of guy that whenever I'm looking at my big running back ranking sheet, I mean, we got, hundreds of names on there. We're moving guys around all the time. He's never a guy I'm moving up. Unfortunately, like there's a little bit of like the missing element of a wow factor there. I think he's a great receiver. I think he's a great guy to get in space. I think he's a great guy to get outside the tackles, but I've been a little bit underwhelmed with his running between the tackles. We even saw his backfield mate over there, Phil Maffa, who isn't really a high-end Devy asset. I mean, you could take a swing on him if you want in like double-digit rounds if your thing goes that deep. He looked like a better runner between the tackles at times last year. I honestly thought that he ran with a little bit more power, which is something that, even you were talking about earlier, getting those 5 to 6 yard chunks at the NFL level. I think that's very important too. That's something that I look forward to. Like with Shipley being so soft sometimes and maybe being more of a specialist type player, which is my fear for the next level. Even though he brings good size and he brings some good athleticism, just the way he's been used, I do worry that he's more of a specialty number 2 player in a committee type player.
No, that's fair. That's why we're going to throw him just to see what your opinions are. And because, like I say, he's a guy that a lot of people have faded off. Despite like he was one of the when I first started playing. I think it was my second year playing Devy. I think so many people he had such a buzz coming out of high school, didn't he? Will Shipley some of his takes and stuff, So just shows you that like I'm not saying that he's a bad player or anything like that. Like have really fallen off, but there's a lot of people that jumped in front of him now, despite where he was at coming out of high school.
And I honestly think that's that team situation too. Clemson hasn't been a very good team for they actually won a lot of games last year, but they haven't been offensively productive since those years of going back of Trevor Lawrence and Deshaun Watson. Like they haven't been that in the same way. So maybe he's suffering from a bit of that too. But yeah, he's just somebody that I have a hard time getting excited about. But a guy that I do get excited about for my last pick here at 3.12. You like that segue? See, there you go. Clean segue. Let's go to talk about Mr. Matthew Golden, Houston wide receiver. Doesn't get talked about enough in this community. And maybe it's because he was a G5 player. He was at Houston, didn't put up like super, super gaudy numbers, but high 4-star prospect, 6 foot, 190 pounds, right around that wide receiver size that the NFL likes nowadays. Comes school competition levels and was like dominant in it. Really good freshman season actually too, under the radar, almost 600 yards through the air, which isn't like super crazy, but had 2 games over 100 yards, 7 receiving touchdowns, which is good enough to set a school record as a freshman. Very fluid mover for his size, very snappy movements, which I love, great foot speed, and he's a track athlete. So and plenty of impressive times in the 100-meter. Now he's walking into the role that Tank Dell left, went off to the NFL as a day 2 pick, which was very productive role that he leaves behind. Now he's getting the shiny Power 5 label as well, with them jumping into the Big 12 this year. So he's honestly been one of my favorite offseason buys this year. I just made a video with Brandon Lejeune at Devy Deep Dive on the program over there. He was one of my buys that I highlighted in that video I did with him as well. But I just don't think enough people. It's like people are kind of are dipping their toes in, where they're afraid to kind of jump in. I'm telling you, go jump in on Matthew Golden, man. He's going to be awesome this year.
Yeah, I like Matthew Golden, and obviously we'll see him in the Big 12 this year for Houston, which is, like I say, you mentioned he was in a group of 5, so over in that Power 5, over there, so that's good. And like you say, Tank Dell has gone, so he could be that main focal point over there. So yeah, that concludes the 3-round draft there. I think we've talked about some good players. Some players hopefully you maybe not heard of yet. Definitely some of the Frenchmen over on Cory's side. He's talked a lot of there. Yeah.
I talk too much. I'm sorry, guys. Now you go on with your day now, and then an hour and a half. Play this on 1.5, okay?
We appreciate jumping on it. Like I say, it's definitely love having guys, in the Devy circles come on, especially guys with experience, to talk us through things. We appreciate you coming on. And like I said, like I mentioned at the top, obviously over at Campus to Canton, like over there, go check all that stuff out. Cory's got podcast over there, Back to Devy, with his partner over there, another one great podcast to listen to. All the good stuff over there, including a Devy, a bit of a Devy side bit coming out as well, haven't you? Is it a Devy guide coming out over there as well? Cory, is it out at the moment?
Yes, it came out on the 1st of May. Devy guide, almost 250 player profiles, stats, rankings, the year 103 we talked about, everything you need to focus on those Devy drafts off season. It's $20 purchase over at the site, or if you become a member, it's included in a lot of those subscription options as well. So if you're interested in this stuff, get on over there. Look at all the stuff we have to offer. We try to make it easier for you. It's a very niche market right now. With not a lot of information out there, we try to give you all the information you need. So get over there and follow me on Twitter at @FF_guitarist. I'm constantly posting, little film bits or little whatever as well. And shoot me a DM. You guys want to talk any Devy, anything like that? Jordan Merritt here just tossed me a DM and we hopped on a podcast. So there you go. It's that easy. I'm a nice guy.
You're definitely a nice guy, and I appreciate you jumping on. Like I say, definitely go drop everyone a follow over there. We'll drop all the links in the video before and on the podcast, so you can drop them a follow on Twitter and everywhere else on YouTube and things like that. So yeah, no, Cory, I appreciate you coming on. Like you said, I just threw one out there to try and get you on because I've listened to your podcast for a bit now and said yes straight away, which is great. That's a great thing about the fantasy circles. There's so many great people out there. If you just helping other people out, make their way in the industry, just talk football. So I appreciate you coming on and talking some Devy guys with me.
Anytime, Jordan. It's been a blast.
I'll speak to you soon. See you soon.
See ya.